Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, whatever the case is. My name is Leoncio Montemayor. I'm a project manager here at Solarplaza, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all on this webinar on the up-and-coming topic, blockchain and energy in Asia, opportunities and challenges for transforming the energy sector in Asia. It is with great pleasure that we have two great speakers, Sheryl Foo, director at Vertech Capital, and Sharon Luo, well, project manager, it's actually marketing manager, apologies, at Biota. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, just a quick look at the agenda. So I'll start with a brief introduction into why we're doing this, a little bit about us, and then we'll go directly into the topic. Where Sheryl will be speaking about sort of the strategy behind blockchain and energy developments in Asia, and then Sharon is gonna talk a little bit more on the technical side. At the end, just a reminder, at the end we will be having a Q&A with the speakers, so make sure to have questions and put them in the system. And at the end we will end the webinar. Just another thing, we will also be recording this, and the slides and the recordings will be available afterwards. So we're doing this webinar in the run-up to our Blockchain to Energy Asia, which we are co-organizing next to our local partner, Vertech Capital. This event will be the 27th of November this year in Singapore. And the whole idea is that we want to connect the up-and-coming Asia blockchain energy industry. We see that there's a lot of interest from many players in Asia. We're talking about governments, for example, starting to liberalize their markets, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, for example. We're also starting to see a lot of utilities doing pilot projects and partnering up with emerging startups. And of course, there's also, well, in Singapore and in Asia, we have a global tech hub, especially with the blockchain. So make sure to join us. This will be the 27th of November in Singapore. And for all of you who don't know us, we are Solarplaza. We were established in 2004, before the start of the solar boom, and we basically organize high-level events, so conferences and trade missions around the world. We've organized more than 100 events, 110 now actually, in more than 30 different countries, and we have a growing network of 60,000 PV professionals around the world. Just some practical notes for everybody. If you have any type of issues, just use the chat box on the GoToWebinar software. Marco here will help you with that. And as well, if you have any questions for the speakers, use the questions box, and we'll get to them during the Q&A. And as I said, the slides will be available after the webinar. So let's get started. So I'd like to introduce Sheryl Foo, Director of APAC at Vertech Capital. She is a smart energy industry expert. She helps innovative firms scale in new markets by providing future analysis, designing cross-domain solutions, and commercializing frontier technologies such as blockchain. She has been working on solar, EV, and blockchain with multiple Fortune 500 clients. She has previous experience in Accenture, Core Alpha, Cantor Consulting, World Vision, Forum for the Future, and the U.S. Department of State. She was President Obama State Department Fellow in 2015. She is passionate about sustainable development and women in business, and she's also the ex-curator for the World Economic Forum Global Shapers community in the Singapore hub. So, Sheryl, I leave you with the floor. Please, you can start.
Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. And I am very excited today to be able to share with you some of the interesting trends that we see here in Asia Pacific for blockchain in the energy sector. So I wanted to run through some of the agenda today that we're going to cover. Sorry, just let me okay. So today, what I want to talk about here is the current state of play that we're experiencing. So this webinar will essentially cover the current landscape and challenges, the innovative use cases, why companies should care, and also the clear opportunities that remain in the Asia-Pacific region and the energy industry for blockchain. So the current state of play we're really experiencing right now is that it is an energy trilemma. So the world's total energy is forecasted to grow about 48% between now and 2040. More than half of this increase will be caused by the growth of emerging economies in Asia. The energy transition, therefore, is about three topics today. Decarbonization, which means putting more renewable energy like wind and solar in the electricity grid. Decentralization, having more distributed energy grids. And digitalization, which brings the digital economy to the energy sector. Blockchain can contribute to all three strands in different ways. I just wanted to also recap quite quickly the key components of the blockchain transaction. Just in case, this is a general audience and may not be very familiar with blockchain, essentially this highlights a high-level overview of what digital assets are in blockchain transactions. The two key areas of disruption here are disintermediation and data transparency. This matters in APAC particularly because of the regulatory barriers and challenges that I will on later. Going deeper in cases, you see that there are 7 main application areas. A few are already being trialed and piloted in Asia, and more will be covered again in the use cases section that looks at Thailand and Indonesia. Before going into a deep dive into the APAC region for blockchain and energy, I wanted to also highlight quite quickly here the differences in the energy industry between Europe and Asia. So the top section here refers to the current state of play in Europe, and the bottom is for Asia. So in Europe, you see that the market structure and regulations here are quite streamlined and homogenized. They are owned by 45 separate entities spread across 28 countries and coordinated by the ETSO. We see also liberalized energy markets and consumer freedom. On the renewable side in Europe, we see there's a focus on DERs along with centralized RE generation too, and also regulation. On the hardware side, we see hardware and infrastructure rollout, infrastructure security, as well as regulation. However, on the opposite side in Asia, we see that under market structure and regulation, we are highly segregated. Each country has distinct market structure and players. There is no common overarching legislation. And this is a real problem because unlike the European region where you have the European Commission, Asia does not have a corresponding legal entity that governs the markets of all the different 20 plus countries in this region. So what you're really saying is that each country or each company rather that tries to enter the Asian region has to develop a very specific in-country strategy that cannot really be applied to all of the other countries. So this means, extra steps in your go-to-market strategy here in the region. And it also means challenges with every country's different regulations. So for example, the Philippines is highly decentralized and very privatized. On the other hand, Singapore and Indonesia is quite centralized and controlled. So in Europe, one of the key main developments so far this year in 2018 is the development of ENERGO. So the German IT company Ponton has actually worked with 39 power and gas traders to build ENERGO since 2016. And regulators are seeking to control the strategic sector, blockchain and energy, to avoid security issues. However, digital infrastructure is lagging and players do not yet agree to share data and, potential privacy breaches as well. So I look to ENERGO as a test of European utilities' ability to protect their margins by dominating novel automated trading architectures, matching energy producers with each other and also with users. This allows them to stave off competition from more agile digital companies. It also helps to speed up the sector shift in Germany from fossil fuels to renewables and helps them to also bypass nuclear energy. This has been highlighted in 2018 in a reorganization of E.ON and RWE this month. So a couple of other key players in the Europe sector, you see Italy's Enel, Germany's E.ON, Sweden's Vattenfall. They're all driven by the need to lower transaction costs in an era of growing competition and energy supplies. So therefore, I wanted to, sort of place where we are at relevant to Europe, where most of our audience is from. You see that a lot of the key innovation is really accelerated through regulation support, and in Asia, that's rather lacking. At the same time, though, this also poses opportunities. So moving on to, I already talked a little bit about some of the challenges. I would like to do a deeper dive here, just flagging really quickly the two most important challenges is interoperability. Various stakeholders in Asia have to work with different blockchain platforms, and the diversity of APAC markets further entrench this challenge. There are no standard, interoperability standards at the moment. And on IoT and hardware data accuracy, this is especially noteworthy in the APAC blockchain context, as smart meter rollout is increasingly prevalent in this region. Governments in the region are investing heavily in storage systems and IoT hardware to facilitate data collection required for blockchain applications. However, the challenges that arise include the level of security and the accuracy of the IoT solution. At the same time, many parts of rural Asia, including Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Central Asia, lack connectivity to the main power grid and also internet. In this context, it's quite challenging for you to then enter and to apply a clear, broad regional strategy. So at the same time, we see a lot of innovation and a lot of bottom-up blockchain use cases coming from Southeast Asia. So just wanted to also, well, sorry, I skipped that slide, but again, to remind us, blockchain application across the value chain here in APAC, this slide helps us to provide more context in the entire value chain and helps you to also strategize about blockchain. The question here for blockchain interested players to enter the APAC market is whether you are ready from an end user perspective, whether in consumer or retail energy markets, because this really influences scalability for expansion across Asia. So we see here in this slide, blockchain technology can help us to coordinate traditionally centralized data from the generation, transmission, and distribution, as well as the end user experience in real time. So back again to how innovative cases are coming up from our part of the world. The first use case here is in Thailand. This is very recent. It was just, I think, announced in September 2018. So there is a blockchain platform and application for carbon credit tokenization led by the European finance firm South Pole, Gold Standard, and so the application protocol here is intended to serve as a means of submitting verified data and automatically issuing certified carbon credits. The pilot project bundles 10 solar farms that together generate 148,477 megawatt hours of clean electricity that is then delivered to the Thai national power grid every year. So this helps Thailand to reduce the need for fossil fuels-based energy and bring down GHG emissions. The overall vision of this cooperation between the three parties here is to streamline and accelerate data verification processes for GHG, inventory management, and carbon credit origination. This application protocol has the potential to reduce MRV costs by up to 10 times in comparison to current practices and to allow real-time tracking of GHG inventories and assurance of carbon credits. The application will be designed for scalability once this pilot has proven successful in order to facilitate GHG management on the project, entity, sector, national, and also regional level. It will increase the relevance of cash flows that are linked to verified mitigation outcomes for project developers and within the climate finance community in general. In our region, the green finance sector is actually very much being led by China. So we see a lot of trends that are moving in the green finance and the climate finance application, where blockchain is actually increasingly being the centerpiece of all of these conversations. So the second use case I wanted to also share is the energy eco chain established in Singapore. This energy eco chain established in Singapore is a platform for energy supply chain finance, payment and settlement services for decentralized energy product trading, and it utilizes cross-chain technology to enable the querying and sharing of data across different blockchains. There is a use case here between different smart meters at the moment, and the key features is hybrid, multi-signature digital wallets, and therefore allowing digital assets to be owned by enterprises instead of individuals. So Singapore is very much a leader in the space when it comes to blockchain and energy. At the same time, though, regulatory issues continue to plague our country. However, we do see a lot of tripartite, cross-border, and also public-private partnerships that aim to help us to move forward despite the lack of a regulation benefit, as you have in Europe, for example. So the next slide here allows us to look into the implications and the requirements for enterprises looking to adopt blockchain solutions. So when we talk about blockchain adoption, there is a 360 degrees view that we have to look at for long-term successful implementation of blockchain. And scale will require different angles of analysis. Beyond the blockchain technology itself, given the diversity of the APAC markets, the end customer, business model, availability of analytics, and policy components will be just as important as main decision drivers. So the decentralized system can increase efficiency of the system. Prices will be determined, obviously, by supply and demand. Availability of data and the analysis will help governments understand the pattern of energy usage at a micro level. Transmission and commercial losses will therefore be reduced. I also wanted to have a slide that evaluated the benefits and limitations of blockchain deployment. Obviously, I think most of our attendees here today have a very good market knowledge of blockchain. So the key benefits are clear: it's a permanent ledger, verification, security, and cost reduction. At the same time, limitations particular to APAC are, as I mentioned many times before, regulatory barriers and platform interoperability. Some illustrative requirements for blockchain adoption and scale despite these two main challenges: planning and development by, via data sharing, digital identity, and verification processes, understanding the role of intermediaries here today, security, as well as data flows. These are all essential to even begin the conversation and the utilization of different blockchain trends. The second step, obviously, is also leadership commitment and long-term investment. The finance sector plays a huge role in this. Key stakeholders can assess the level of readiness from an internal digital readiness standpoint and also determine the degree of commitment to blockchain implementation. And obviously, the third step as well is also building and integration. So the opportunity in Asia Pacific. I've talked a lot about the challenges, but I think when it comes, when other regions are looking to expand in APAC, challenges are opportunities. There are places for you to plug in your solution and to also understand how to cooperate with in-country conditions. Opportunities remain at the same time for blockchain adoption in the energy industry. So regulators are forging ahead. Some clear examples are earlier this year, the Energy Market Authority opened a regulatory sandbox for pilot innovative blockchain projects. This effort allows regulators to assess the impact of new innovative blockchain solutions before deciding the appropriate regulatory response. So here in Singapore, the response is always a wait-and-see approach because the government is cautious. At the same time, this also allows us to understand where the regulators are coming from, what their mandate and issues are, before we then, have a self-reflexive, iterative approach in designing the solution for industry adoption. The two remaining opportunities are that blockchain communities in Asia are strengthening. My other speaker, Sharon, will speak a little bit more about this because their company is leading the charge in China for this. So leveraging on strong blockchain communities and agreeing on standards across multiple stakeholders will allow companies to accelerate blockchain deployment efforts. And the last opportunity is that pilots are early evidence of the disruptive power of blockchain. Numerous blockchain pilot projects, as Leo has alluded to earlier on, If existing pilots can prove to be scalable, then we can accelerate our entire transition to a more distributed, cost-effective, and inclusive energy industry. And all of these opportunities take place in the context also of the larger trend to microgrids across Central Asia. We see the development of governments such as in Japan, China, and Korea to partner together and develop microgrids that then helps us to access electricity distribution for rural areas and more, confidently, I guess I would say, would also be their vision to distribute energy throughout the entire region. So that's all for me today. I'm very happy to answer some questions in the Q&A later, and I pass the mic now to Sharon.
Thanks, Sheryl, for a great presentation and overview on blockchain energy in Asia. I personally have a couple of questions, but we can leave it for the Q&A. And just a reminder for everybody, if you have any questions for the speakers, make sure to put them in the questions box in the software, so that we can get them and we can follow up with them on the Q&A. So now let's move on to the second speaker, Sharon Luo, from Marketing Manager for Biota. She studied a Master of Management and International Business and Marketing at the University of Sydney. She has marketing experience in Australia and China. She has been leading the deployment of the energy project in the Asia Pacific region, with many years of experience in consulting and strategic planning. And she's working closely with the development team at Biota to align the market gap and the blockchain development. So without further ado, Sharon, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And I'm very happy to join this webinar and have the opportunity to talk about blockchain technology, energy sector in Asia market. And it's a great opportunity to talk to you guys. I'm very happy. And first of all, please allow me to introduce a little bit about ENERGO Labs. Okay. So ENERGO Labs is a leading energy blockchain technology solution provider. It integrates blockchain into the energy sector to establish decentralized autonomous energy communities where energy is a digital asset that can be traded for several applications. At the core of ENERGO Labs is a public blockchain platform and a decentralized system designed for the measurement, registration, transaction, and settlement of clean energy in local microgrids. We strongly believe that ENERGO Labs will bring about a real decentralized autonomous energy community to the future smart grid and smart city. As blockchain technology promises to revolutionize almost everything, and specifically in the energy sector, this means reduced transaction costs, better grid management, new financing models, productivity savings, and so much more. That's why we believe blockchain technology is the answer to some of the challenges facing the future energy system. In combination with the increased use of smart meters and the continued development of demand-side response mechanisms, new digital peer-to-peer platforms such as the one ENERGO is developing are starting to emerge. Those platforms cut out the middleman and connect renewable green energy producers directly with those who want it. As you can see from this diagram, it shows exactly how those trends in combination with blockchain will alter the way we transact energy. In traditional energy markets, there are many middlemen sitting between the energy generators and consumers, such as network operators, energy retail companies, meter operators, and also traders, etc. And of course, the banks that facilitate all those different payments. This often means quite a decentralized system and increased costs due to the many parties involved. With a blockchain-based trading platform, it will be possible to simplify this model since the trust that those third parties offer is now provided by the blockchain. This would allow energy users to get their energy directly from the generators and bring down prices by moving the fees in the middle. For example, as you can see from this decentralized autonomous community, energy is transformed into blockchain-based digital assets and traded between energy prosumers and also consumers. The possible applications include, but not limited to, peer-to-peer, machine-to-machine, vehicle-to microgrid, renewable energy certificate trading, and visual net metering.
Hello, Sharon. Sharon, we don't hear you. Okay, what we'll do is yeah, I don't know what kind of issues are there, but we can go to the Q&A, and then when Sharon is back, we can continue the presentation. So well, it's only you, Sheryl, for the moment. So Sheryl, tell me a little bit more about Vertech Capital and you know what's in the pipeline and how come Vertech Capital is involved in the blockchain energy industry.
So the roots of Vertech Capital actually comes from solar equity financing. So we have had roots in, understanding how to work with EPCs and other finance structures to scale up solar power in the greater Semiconductor region. And then from there, we started looking at other adoptions and other technology adoptions in energy. So I myself, for example, was very active in Europe in understanding what sort of innovations are there and trying to also understand the application for the sort of innovative technologies in APAC. So Vertech Capital, essentially what we do is we have a portfolio of innovative technologies from startups around the world, and we design cross-domain solutions for these startup companies. On the other side, we also help corporations develop go-to-market strategies and also innovation labs and other sort of platforms that they would like to actually adopt these technologies, right? So for example, NG from France has recently opened up their innovation office in Singapore, and Total and NL are also in talks for that. So essentially how we position ourselves is we are the convener and we are also the designer of solutions for applications across APAC. Now that is really broad, so I also wanted to share a little bit about what our work is in blockchain and energy. So we have worked with a lot of startups in the Asia Pacific region and Europe, startups as well that want to enter the market. And we see that blockchain cannot exist in a vacuum. So when we look at rollout of these technologies, sometimes also, the question is, do we really need blockchain to achieve the outcome that these companies want? Like, blockchain is definitely the hype of the past 2 years, and increasingly is a consolidated multi-billion-dollar industry in the next 5 years. And then after that, we really want to do how other technologies like AI, for example, and edge computing can come into the foray, right? So innovation is definitely a tapestry of different technologies, and blockchain is just about one of them. For example, I always like to liken blockchain to essentially a Google Sheets. So every user who goes on the Google Sheets is privatized, can only share to certain people. The information is also built according to the different lines of information you put it in. So at a very basic level, from a technical point of view, blockchain is not really very new. It's a distributed system. I mean, it's like DNS, for example, or Internet 5.0. And, the hype now is just more about the applications. But again, it's really not new. And when you look into blockchain adoption, you really have to consider if what are your qualification criteria for technology adoption?
Yeah.
So just want to share a little bit more about that as well. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, thanks, Cheryl. But I see that Sharon, are you there? Because I saw that you just entered again.
Hello, can you hear
Oh,
me now?
perfect. Yes. Yes, I
I'm
don't
very
know what
sorry.
yeah, no problems. Thanks, Cheryl, for the mini Q&A. We'll get back to it after Sharon's presentation. So Sharon, please,
Okay.
you can continue.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I got cut off. So
Yeah,
is
in
this
this slide. Yeah.
okay? Great. Okay, good to know. Thank you. So ENERGO Labs have been collaborating with different partners and companies trying to build DAE communities in many countries across Asia, such as South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, Philippines, and India. One of them was structured around Philippine University campus with energy supplier First Gen. It demonstrates the disruptive power of blockchain technology, enabling the P2P exchange of electricity between prosumers. And the one with EGAT in Thailand, we are trying to build up the first renewable energy powered EV charging station platform using blockchain technology. So essentially, we believe there are many opportunities when it comes to energy blockchain in Asia. Asia is a market that welcomes blockchain technology, especially in energy sectors. Many energy organizations and also companies are actively exploring how this technology can revolutionize this sector. By decentralizing the market in such a way, commercial opportunities will for sure arise from for both consumers and also suppliers. Hello?
Yes.
Can you guys still hear me?
There you go.
It's a little bit delay in the slides.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, yeah, that's the opportunities that we think of blockchain, energy blockchain in Asia. But of course, needless to say, there are also challenges facing energy blockchain sector, many of which are also the challenges we have been encountering during our project development, such as scalability, speed limitations, and also high and volatile costs of related cryptocurrencies, and of course, different regulatory restraints. And I think that's the reason why we decided to take a step back and created our own public chain platform, Biota. So to address those issues directly from our side. So Biota is a high-performance blockchain-based cloud operating system that delivers fast transaction confirmation, low cost of operation, and unlimited scalability, enabling anyone to build large-scale decentralized applications. It is also exactly because of those key features that I just mentioned about Biota. It is a perfect public chain platform for energy sector. We're developing a protocol links the Biota network to the physical world by facilitating connection and validation of a large number of distributed IoT devices and their data. It is very ideally suited to the age of big data. So with that being said, it doesn't mean that Biota can only be used in the energy sector. Our vision is to actually build a sector agnostic cloud operating system to enable a future where highly scalable, world-changing, decentralized applications can be easily deployed by anyone from anywhere in the world. So Biota will be used in many sectors such as healthcare, energy, retail, agriculture, fintech, and so many more. Just a very quick rundown of Biota's roadmap. We will launch our testnet by the end of this month, and also our mainnet by the end of this year. And our partners, including many great universities all around the world, they will support the development of Biota network. We believe that Biota will overcome those technical challenges and issues that Sheryl and I have just mentioned, but we will also continuously explore the possibility of revolutionizing the energy sector using blockchain technology, hopefully with many more partners and local governments to overcome both technical and also regulatory challenges in the future. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for the presentation. And no worries about the technical issues. Let's move on to the Q&A. No worries.
Great.
Let's move on to the Q&A. I actually do see quite some questions coming in from the audience, so I encourage everybody to send in their questions. Let's get started. So I do have a question here that is for both speakers, and I think it would be interesting to hear both speakers' opinions. So Krutak makes this question. In the Asia Pacific region, you know, there's from the interactions with regulators and investors, there's a lot of enthusiasm. So which countries do you think are best prepared for deploying energy blockchain projects beyond the pilot phase? So maybe Sheryl, you can start, and then Sharon, you can do after Sheryl. Was the question clear?
Hi. Yes. So essentially, you're asking about which countries in APAC are more likely to deploy blockchain beyond pilot stage, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Which countries are best prepared?
I believe that Japan actually is well positioned because they invest a lot in many different types of technologies, and the industry support is very strong as well. So regulation-wise, for example, Electrify and Electrona companies that have been going in and focusing on decentralization to avoid nuclear energy adoption, maximization of ESS and smart meters, actually are also another key facet of this. So the regulation in Japan is also more open. And another country is also Singapore, still very much on a test bed side, whereas for Indonesia and Philippines, there is good market competition, low barriers to entry for prosumers. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. I do have to agree. I think I agree with you that Japan is probably the best prepared country for deploying these pilot projects. Sharon, what are your thoughts on this?
I also agree with you guys that Japan is very ready and prepared and very proactively seeking for solutions, and also you know, to make their blockchain energy sector better. But I also think maybe Australia is also one of the countries, pioneer countries that are also trying to you know, establish some kind of like very health system in the blockchain energy sector. Yeah, we have already witnessed some great pilot cases that are very successful in Australia in this sector.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Australia also with the liberalized market and, you know, the high electricity prices. Yeah, blockchain seems like the appropriate solution for that particular situation. And just for our audience, if you want to learn more also about Australia blockchain energy projects, we'll be covering these during the conference. Let's move on to the next question. Yes, sure.
Sorry, can I also add a little bit more to what I was to answer? I think this is a really good question.
Please. Please.
The thing about blockchain regulation in APAC is that there is a lot of efforts in the countries already listed, right? So Sharon has also listed Australia, Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, and the Philippines. what they're doing right now is at a drafting stage. So there hasn't actually been any regulation passed. They are using sandboxes to implement a wait-and-see approach. So sandboxes allow regulators to then define what sort of drafting of regulation or legislation that they would like to impose. So at this moment, there is interest, but we don't see any hard actions yet at the moment.
Oh, okay, quite interesting. And I mean, of course, Cheryl, well, in Europe, well, we do have the European Union, which from a top-down perspective can sort of accelerate blockchain adoption, you know, throughout all the member countries. Do you feel like in Asia there could be a possibility to have sort of a union, sort of like the European Union in terms of all blockchain energy or in terms of energy, and would this help drive the adoption of blockchain technology in the region?
Okay, so that's a really great question. First of all, in Asia, as I've mentioned before, we don't have a consolidated legal body like the European Commission. So we're not even talking about energy sector and blockchain. We're just talking about, you know, free markets and things like that. You know, we have the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. We have the ASEAN +3, +4, +7, which includes New Zealand and Australia and East Asia, for example. However, there is nothing legally binding in all of these associations. It's just merely about discussing what are some of the political issues there. So at the moment, the markets are too utilities have to work together in the private sector to self-govern in that sense. So the good thing about European Union and the Europe region is that the existence of the European Union in the very first place is setting the rules of the game. In Asia, we have to define the rules first before we even can implement it. So I would say a lot of the thrust and the focus will have to be on the private sector and the finance sector in moving this forward. And governments here play more of a sort of a second role in the wait-and-see approach. It appears that innovation is driven by startups and private companies, and then the regulation comes after, which is completely opposite, I think, in Europe.
Yeah, I agree. And what about investment flowing in from abroad? Do you have any suggestions or recommendations for investors looking to invest in the region? Yes, Cheryl?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So for if you're looking at investment in the energy space, first of all, energy is a very political and sensitive industry everywhere in the world, and much so also in Japan and Asia because of the nuclear situation. The start of this, for the start of investment, then you really have to look at hardware. So laying down the hard infrastructure in the first place, we need to increase the commercialization and the rollout for the collection of data, such as smart meters, energy systems, grid sensors. These are not even in place at the moment. As I mentioned, Asia is incredibly vast and huge, and most of the time, the population density, for example, in countries like Mongolia and Kazakhstan and Central Asia is too low for even think about a centralized grid being able to provide, you know, electricity access for various rural populations. So hardware is one thing. So invest in hardware, and then, you know, obviously it has to be proprietary and you cooperate with a local partner for that. In terms of software, there needs to be an investment in the education and knowledge production area. So we really want to see investments going to supporting private companies' knowledge production, case studies, utilities, experience with the different in-country conditions. Without knowledge production, you're not going to see any, you're not going to see market feedback for to then inform your investments.
Okay. Well, yeah, I do agree. And on the hardware situation, I think it also involves the data, you know, and you know, the quality of the data. And this is actually a question also from Matthew from the audience. And this is directed to Sharon. So for a peer-to-peer energy blockchain system, and of course, having the correct and accurate data is almost imperative to to enable an efficient system. So Sharon, what have you seen in terms of data storage and data access layers in the blockchain energy sector, and what are you doing in Biota to sort of safeguard the quality of the data that you use, in your applications? Sharon?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the question. And it's actually very interesting that we have experienced some difficulties when it comes to trying to gate data from smart meters and from those IoT devices. Because every smart meter is so different, and every country is very different, the settings and everything. So that's why I think Biota comes up with our own protocol. It's called Tesla protocol. That's actually trying to channel or connect the data from all this massive distributed IoT devices to our protocol through a common data model, and then we can use those data from off-chain to our public chain platform, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but this Tesla protocol, yeah, what does it entail? How does it work?
It's kind of very technical question.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how exactly those
Okay.
protocol works.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think going on a similar
Sorry,
line
Leo.
and just sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to also add a little bit to what Sharon was saying.
Okay.
So from the Vertech point of view, we believe that actually software here is not the issue. You're talking about accuracy of data. Blockchain does verification of the data. First of all, the data has to be accurate from the ground. So collection of data has to be precise. There is currently a very vast immature gap in the Asian market at the moment with the hardware, as I've mentioned before. The hardware's ability to transmit data in real time is not existing at a industry benchmark level. So first of all, before we even talk about verification, we need to understand what sort of data has been collected and the precision of these sensors and smart meters. It's going to be a garbage in, garbage out sort of situation if we just implement a sophisticated blockchain solution in a rural village in Mongolia, and these Mongolians have no advanced instruments. They're working on sensors and meters that are at least 20 years behind. So investment therefore really has to come to push for mature infrastructure, and these investors stand to gain, right? Because we're talking about an entire region that's ripe for high ROI.
Yeah, because without for example, smart meter penetration, then a lot of these blockchain pilot projects won't be able to reach mass adoption or a significant commercial adoption. Is that right? Okay. So just going to yes.
Sorry, can I just add on the question on my answer that even though I'm not a very technical person, I'm not very sure how the protocol of Biota works, like in a technical, more programming perspective. But actually Nanyang Technological University from Singapore is helping us design the framework of the protocol, and they will also help us develop the protocol. So they will publish a more detailed yellow paper regarding this later on. So if anyone who is interested in learning more about this protocol and how we can connect off-chain big data from all this IoT devices to, on-chain, our platform, our public chain platform, you can write me an email or follow us on our website.
Okay. Thanks, Sharon. Similar. I mean, we're talking about data and smart meters and the impact of blockchain. Harry from the audience is asking, so how can blockchain support off-grid energy technologies, either a mini grid or a solar home system, where you're not connected to the grid. It's just sort of an isolated energy island. So how can blockchain support these technologies, Sharon? Sharon? I think you're on mute.
Sorry.
Or
Sorry, can
Cheryl.
you repeat the question? I know I'm not supposed to
Yes.
take this question, but can you repeat it?
Yeah, no. So the question is, how can blockchain support off-grid energy technologies such as a mini grid or a solar home system, in a situation where this energy island is not connected to the grid, so it's just an isolated. So how can blockchain support these technologies? Sharon or Cheryl?
Can you just answer that?
Yep. Sharon? I mean, does Biota have any pilot projects on sort of off-grid projects?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I think our pilot projects mostly focus on grid projects mostly, but
Okay.
off-grid can help like more like a financing model. For example, someone in Europe, and then they can pay money to trade the energy to someone based in Asia. So it's more like off-grid. It's more like a financing kind of a model.
Okay. Well, Harry, if you're listening, feel free to send them an email as a follow-up question.
Yes, actually, I would like to also speak a little bit to this question. So his question essentially was, how is blockchain being applied in off-grid island sort of communities, right? In the sense that in a rural area, for example, you have a village, and then how can blockchain accelerate that? So first of all, energy access hardware is already distributed through solar rooftop and solar home systems. When we talk about energy access investments or rural electricity access government projects, there's peer-to-peer energy transactions that can already take place on top of this hardware. So you then apply on an existing net in the physical world. This will allow you to therefore also achieve microgrid to microgrid transactions between microgrids that serve different loads. So for example, we're looking at commercial or industrial or residential or rural. So in India, what they can do, or in the Philippines, for example, residential areas trade their energy to the markets at night that these rural areas serve. And in the daytime, they produce the energy from the sun. So blockchain therefore becomes a platform in which we allow this peer-to-peer distributed energy trading. Again, I cannot stress the importance of the verification efficacy of the hardware. Because in the pilot project in Philippines, one of the problems is that the internet connectivity was so low, the media was not even recording precise output from the energy system, that we're looking at hours and hours of data that was not able to be processed, right? And it wasn't even in real time. We're talking about just processing at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. They couldn't even do that. They couldn't upload that to the main cloud. So again, emphasizing the importance of investments in mature infrastructure.
Yeah, and Cheryl, definitely. And what do you think about the combination of blockchain with other technologies? I mean, artificial intelligence is the first one that comes to my mind. but in a fully decentralized, decarbonized, digitalized energy grid. I mean, how important is it the conjunction of, for example, AI and blockchain and other technologies, machine learning, big data, um, neural networks? Some companies are working on neural networks. What do you think about this combination of technologies?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, just checking my connection. So am I right to say that you're asking what is the cross-domain intersection between blockchain and AI, and what are the exciting possibilities from this?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what blockchain can provide here is that you're using the data, the database, right? Blockchain is a database, and you use this data, and then you work it with the over the grid energy transactions with AI to automate detection and response for grid faults, for example, and other infrastructure defects that may happen. So AI is actually a really important technology for this. Robotics can also be used for this to automate and help address all of these faults in big grids, right? And we're talking about like huge solar farms, for example. So I really see the intersection here as blockchain providing the verified, accurate, real-time data, and then AI using that database to then learn and then also predict any spikes in the load times, or to also predict patterns of behavior from the grid load situation. Of course, you also need to make sure that IoT is also in place, IoT infrastructure, because you need to collect and transmit data that will be processed by the blockchain through smart contracts, for example. So AI is the processor and blockchain is the database. And actually, there are a lot of trends in Asia and Europe for this, the intersection. I think that's a very exciting thing that warrants another webinar. So
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it as well. Great. We're running out of time, Cheryl and Sharon, but I would like to ask one final question to both of you. So let's just imagine what's going to happen in the next year with regards to energy blockchain in Asia. What are your predictions? What do you think if we were to do this webinar a year from now? What would we be talking about in regards to energy blockchain in Asia? So Cheryl, feel free to start.
hello. Yep. So in the next day with regards to energy and blockchain, in Asia, investment and how we continue to be slow. Regulations will only slowly open up to the demand from the private sector for blockchain implications. And in 1 year, what we really will be discussing is the success of all of these pilot projects and the shaping of all of these regulations. So 1 year from now, I see a lot of investment in startups. I see a lot of alliances being formed, tripartite alliances between the public, private, and also the finance sector, leveraging accelerators, setting up blockchain labs with dedicated resources and putting together blockchain interdisciplinary task force. So what we're going to see here is, first of all, processing what we have already achieved so far, inputting different sorts of different pieces of innovation we see from other regions in the Middle East and in the Americas and Europe and Africa as well, combining a very unique situation where, the private sector is taking the lead innovation and authorities play catch up. And at the same time, startups increasingly becoming the centerpiece of this whole ecosystem. Yeah.
Okay, great. And Vertech's position in this future?
So Vertech aims to be the centerpiece of this entire ecosystem. We all often take an ecosystem approach and understand the different needs and mandates of the different players. So here we see 1 year from now, we'll be actively engaging consortiums led by some of the major European energy companies, having those conversations and then working with the authorities to then see what the market opportunities are for implementation. And then on the bottom up side, we will be working with many different startups and understanding how they all piece together. So alliances are incredibly important, and we're also very collaborative in our approach.
Great. Thanks, Cheryl. Exciting times ahead. And Sharon, just to finish out the Q&A, what are your views on the upcoming year of energy blockchain in Asia?
Oh,
Yes.
can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I think from our side, we think that it is just a beginning. We do have developed a lot of pilot cases that are trying to improve the energy sector, the blockchain energy sector, and I think that regulators from different countries and governments are also trying to also embrace the technology and try to hopefully they will make all these pilot cases more scalable in the future. And of course, from ENERGO or Biota's position in this trend, we do hope we will continuously explore the possibility of implementing blockchain in the energy sector. We will continue staying in the conversation, but also not only that, but also provide a solution to overcome some of the issues and also challenges that we have been discussed about.
Okay. Well, seems like we will have a lot to talk about and discuss about in the coming year. So I mean, for all the attendees, be sure to visit the website asia.blockchain2energy.com for more information about this. I would like to extend my gratitude towards Sheryl and Sharon for speaking today and answering all your questions. Greatly appreciate this. And all the attendees, just feel free to, well, you have the email, so feel free to send your questions if they were unanswered to the speakers so that they can follow up on them. So thanks, Sheryl, Sharon, and thanks to everybody for joining this webinar. My name is Leoncio Montemayor. If you have any questions, just feel free to email me at leoncio@solarplaza.com. Thanks, everybody, and I hope you have a great day today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.